Hello, everyone. Okay, we're diving in deep this week with the beautiful Shelby Eloria, who is an amazing leader, someone who feels really real, very genuine, and is guiding the way in a way that I so appreciate. I love this talk with her. We talk about the good girl mentality. If you were raised in a family where you felt like you needed to play small or keep the peace or ensure that you weren't seen or heard, you'll identify so deeply with this, I'm sure. We also talk about how Shelby knew that she was meant to speak from such a young age, from the age of 16, and how that kind of unfolded for her because it wasn't always clear what she was here to do. And so if you struggle with, that inner knowing, then I think you're going to really enjoy this episode as well. Her and I both talk about leadership and the fact that, we are called to speak, but how that's not always comfortable. And so I'm hoping that this is really inspiring for you. And we talk a lot about soul purpose, which was a really nice surprise to speak with Shelby because I really haven't talked to her that much. I knew her pre-COVID, and I feel like today I got to understand her much more deeply. We share a lot of commonalities, and I'm walking away really, really inspired. So I think you're going to be just as inspired, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts. Hang on and let's dive in. Hey there, it's Jillian, your guide to all things joy, and this is the Joy Journey Podcast. Oh my God. Hello and welcome to the Joy Journey Podcast. I'm your host, Jillian Shecker, and today I'm here with Ms. Shelby Eloria. Shelby is a keynote speaker. She is a personal identity guide. She's an image consultant as well as the founder of All Set Style. That's how I know her, and co-founder of Black Sheep Co. She helps individuals redefine identity, image, and impact so they can step boldly into their authentic selves. A 2024 AWE Award nominee, Shelby's styling expertise has been featured in global publications, and she's spoken to audiences across industries on personal leadership and branding. She also co-hosted the Creative Style Maker Global Summit, bringing together global experts to explore style and creativity. Through her coaching and programs, Shelby empowers people to lead with confidence and purpose. And I've known Shelby since we were trying to figure out, so we reconnected at the Business Mastery Summit. And I know we knew each other pre-COVID. And then it's one of these experiences of going down your own path and then kind of finding each other again. And we started talking, and I just know that you're going to love her. She's got a beautiful messages to share with us today through her own personal journey. And I'm just so excited to have you here. Welcome, Shelby.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, this is exciting. It feels like good old times, but in new ways, right?
Totally.
Lots of new, it feels like for you.
Yeah.
So why don't we dive in, share with us. Yeah. I mean, I know I kind of introduced you, but share with us where you're at, what you do, a little bit about your joy journey and what has led you to here.
Yeah, that's a good, I love what you do. I love the idea of joy, and because we all go through ups and downs in our lives, right? And being able to have joy as part of that, I think it's easy to lose that. And so in terms of the joy journey, oh gosh, I don't even know where to start. I had an incredible childhood. I grew up in a good, solid family with great relationships. And yet you find yourself in adulthood, and there's still stuff that happens when you're a kid, things you learn that you're like, wow, that didn't allow me to be me, or it didn't allow me to find myself. And that's been a big part of my journey, is this growing up as you're a good girl. And good girls stay small. And I just shared with a group this past weekend. I was a keynote speaker at an event, and I was talking about how you good girls stay small, and yet I had this bigness inside of me.
Yeah.
And I always felt until well into my 30s that I have to keep myself small, let other people shine. And then learning to reframe that, when I'm my true authentic self, I can then allow other people to shine as well. I don't have to keep myself hidden. And I think that's been kind of in my whole life's journey, that's been a really foundational part of it. I knew when I was 16 years old that I would be a speaker. It was a dream that chose me. I was a shy kid. I was like, what business do I have, being on stage or speaking to anybody? And I hid it. I hid that dream for a long time. And it was in a church setting that I discovered it. I grew up in an evangelical church. And at the time, I also knew that I wouldn't talk about that.
Mm.
And that was a really interesting thing to know. And yet I was so involved in that part of life. And I didn't really understand that. And it wasn't until maybe 2 years ago that I even admitted that out loud.
Wow.
And even though I don't go to church anymore, my beliefs have changed. However, that was such an interesting thing as a 16-year-old to be like, I'm going to be speaking on stage in front of thousands of people one day, and I'm not going to talk about one of the things that felt like a core part of who I was at the time.
Mm.
And that was really an interesting mindset shift and identity shift at the time. And then I went to university. I did all the things that, good girls plan to do. I went to university. I got a degree, a business degree in HR, and I spent 13 years working in corporate HR. During that time, I met somebody, I got married and started down that part of life.
More good girl stuff.
More good girl stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly. I followed the path. I had, you go to school, you start a career, you get married. I didn't have kids, so that wasn't, I didn't follow the rules on that one.
High five. Same, sister.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was by choice and not by choice. My husband got sick with mental health issues, and that really ended up affecting a lot of the dreams that we had. And so it was both by choice and not by choice, because I still could have had the choice of figuring out a way to have children. However, I chose to stay and love him and be a support to him through that journey.
May I ask a question that's coming up? First off, I just need to say, I am encouraging our listeners to check in with, do you identify with the good girl mentality?
Mm-hmm.
Was that something that you've been or struggled with? Maybe didn't even realize that it is something that most of us do struggle with. So I just so love you bringing it up in that way. And then the next question coming up for me is just around having children. Is that something that you did want to do, that you always wanted to do and then decided not to, or something that wasn't on your radar?
It's a great question. I always thought I would have kids. I always wanted to have kids. I always dreamed of having, being a mom. It wasn't the only thing I dreamed of. However, it was part of what I dreamed of doing.
Yeah. And so some grief around that, I imagine.
Yeah, I actually went through, I would say it was about a 2-year grief journey that I went through around that when I was about 28. It was around the time my younger sister had gotten pregnant and was having her first. And she's 4.5 years younger than me. And I mean, I cheer her on and love her for the journey she's been on. However, it was really painful for me in the sense of I'm not there. And I have control over it, but I also don't, because it wasn't only my decision within my relationship. And so, yeah, it was like grieving. It was like grieving a child, even though I never had the opportunity to love a child. That's what the process felt like. I felt like I was like, at some points, like almost like talking to the child I never had. And so it was definitely a grief journey.
Yeah, I feel that. And I just so see you and honor you. It feels important to bring up just because not a lot of us talk about this. And it just felt like we should. I feel like for me, the fact that I don't have children, I thought maybe I might have kids. It was never like an absolute no. It felt like if and when I'm ready, I will cross that bridge. And I still don't feel ready. And I'm 48 now. And there's not a day that goes by that's not like high five to myself. I just feel so aligned with not having kids. And I feel like there are some women who I meet who feel the same way. And then there's some who also would have chosen differently if you had the opportunity. So it does feel like a contrast experience. Again, here to bring you all of your own lessons, I'm sure. And I think what's coming through to share is around how our society is really set up for child-rearing mom. There's a lot, most women are talking about kids and how when you're a mom, and I notice in the rooms that I'm in that people will they'll kind of see me or feel me and shift it to or maybe a dog mom, or, which is so beautiful. But I do feel it can be challenging because that's kind of what women are talk like that's what, a lot of us are doing. And sometimes can feel like somehow you're not aligned or like measuring up, or I don't know. Like, do you feel you have that experience ever?
Yeah, it's almost like you're not fulfilling the purpose that you're
The
supposed
good
to
girl,
have. The good girl.
the
Yeah.
friggin' good girl, right?
Yeah. And I'll
Yeah.
tell you that similar to you, once I went through that grief and I made the decisions that, okay, this is not going to be me. And the opportunity did come up a couple years ago that was like, okay, well, maybe we should have children. And I was about to turn 41.
Mm.
And I was just like, I did that internal check and I'm like, you know what? I've created my life in a way that I love it. And as much as I did want children, I knew I grieved well because I didn't jump at the chance of like,
Yeah.
okay, now I have an opportunity to.
Yeah.
And it is different walking into a room when you don't have children and people feel like they have to, less now that I'm in my 40s, but when I was like in my 30s in the heat of all of this, it felt like I should be ashamed of where I am, or it felt like I didn't belong in a lot of spaces because I didn't have children. And I often chose just to talk about it and call it
Yeah.
right out. Like,
Yeah.
like, yeah, this is a thing. This is where I'm at.
Yeah.
I don't want to lessen you being a mom and the joy and love that you find there. And I also want to celebrate and honor where I am too.
I love that so much, Shelby. And I also just want to say that the way that I kind of rectified it in my mind and heart was just that motherhood is actually an energy, like the maternal, divine feminine energy of nourishment and nurturing. And I feel like we all do that in different ways. And I love that we're at a state where people get it, like where it doesn't have to be black or white anymore. And for me, I also feel like I'm birth and joy babies, man. Like I don't have time. I don't have time for kids. Like I'm just birthing, babies and ideas. And when you think of, to get a little bit wooey, if we were to come to the sacral chakra, which is where the womb space is in women, like actually the space of co-creation. So, and that's when I also saw it differently, was when I started diving more into like the spiritual aspect of this was, what does it look like to be in co-creation? And we're in co-creation all of the time. It doesn't need to necessarily be through child birth and rearing. It's like through ideas and creativity. And I look at like what you're doing and I see you are absolutely in this energy.
Yeah. I love that. That is so beautiful. And I can agree with that energy of it. It is and it's not even my business or what I do, but it's the idea of the people that I'm impacting or going to impact. It's like that mothering energy towards them.
Yeah.
And that's the space that I feel like I'm meant to be in, at least right now. And I love it. It excites me.
Yeah. Okay. So let's jump back into your story. And you were sharing with us around like, choosing not to have children at that time, and then feel free to pick it back up.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So around the time that it was like, okay, we're probably not going to have children, I was working in the corporate world and it was really hard. I was having this like difficulty at home. And then I was starting to recognize that work was not where I was supposed to be. I was trying to say, well, my speaking is facilitating workshops at work, or my speaking is like, I tried to, justify what it could be. And I always felt like I didn't have anything to say. Like, who am I to say anything? And why would I be a speaker if I have nothing to say? This was in around 2014 to 2016. There was a lot of layoffs that were happening. I was working in the oil and gas industry and the human resource world, and there's a lot of layoffs happening. And for a few years leading up to that, I knew I wanted to start a business or do something. I didn't know what. I really struggled, and I had the golden handcuffs because it was like good paycheck, good security, good benefits. With what was going on at home, I had this security that was there. And then one day in 2016, it was the day before they were about to do a bunch of layoffs, and I got the call and I ended up being laid off. And it was this beautiful moment, this beautiful gift that was given to me. I'd wanted it. I think I manifested it, to be honest.
Did you feel like Mel Gibson in Braveheart?
Yeah.
The freedom.
Totally. I walked out to my car and I called my husband and I was like, this is what happened. He's like, good.
You're like, I'm free.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, that's exactly what it felt like. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I wasn't going to stay in the corporate world and in HR. And I spent some time talking to those around me and my trusted advisors, and it kept coming back to clothing and wardrobe. And I had this belief, well, we shouldn't care about what we wear. It's vanity. And yet, since I was a little girl, I've loved clothing. Not fashion so much, but clothing and the way it makes you feel. And I spent some time really thinking about this as to, well, when we wear something that feels like who we are,
Mm.
we show up differently.
Yeah.
And I thought back to all my time in HR, and when I would wear something that aligns with who I am, I show up differently and I see it in other people. But where do we learn? Where do we learn that? If we don't have someone in our lives who can help guide us, where do we learn that? I decided to start a business that would help teach people how to, like, give people tools essentially on how to align who they are on the inside with what they wear. And
Mm.
that's how All Set Style was born. And it's not an easy business to build, I will tell you that. And with all the personal internal stuff I was going through, it was a slow build, because that's just what I needed at the time. I needed something that I could birth, a business that I could birth that was mine, and I needed it to be slow so that I could care for myself in the process as well. And I got over the belief that it's vanity, because I think it can be.
Yeah.
However, it's all in your mindset towards it. It was beautiful to start to see the impact that it would have on people. So that was 8 years ago
Love
that
it.
I started it. And it's been really cool to see the journey. And I really do it for the impact that I see in people, and that joy that I see in people when
Mm.
they put something on that they've never worn before, and it feels like who they are on the inside, and I can see it in their face. I see it in their body language, and it's so incredibly beautiful.
Can I jump in and ask you? So this weekend I had a joy facilitator day retreat and we went through our joy-based values, which is really figuring out like how do you most want to feel, in your life. And we had this conversation about beauty because beauty came up for one of the facilitators as a joy-based value, but also the resistance of it. Like I don't want to choose that because it feels like it is vain or external or shallow. So we had this really beautiful kind of chat around what that gets to mean. And I actually added it to my list because, to be honest, I felt a little bit uncomfortable with it too. But when I deepened into what does beauty really mean, and I'd love to hear your take on it, to me, it's like the same energy as awe, magic, joy. Like it's really actually quite I can't not use the word beautiful now. Energy. And so I would love to, and like when, as you're speaking, I'm thinking, okay, this is actually the depth of the word beauty, that sense of deep inner alignment and making these things matter. I feel like we come into this realm, into the earth realm, the human realm, as, I believe as souls having a human experience or spiritual beings having a human experience. And we're here to use all of our senses. And so getting dressed, like how things feel, how things look, like this is actually a sensual experience. And so I absolutely think clothing is a part of this and makes a lot of sense to me. Do you want to share
Yes.
kind of your take on what that means for you?
Yes, I absolutely believe that. And I think beauty happens when you have that connection to your soul or to who you are on the inside. And that's where that beauty comes in. And it doesn't matter what you look like on the outside. It matters that connection that you have with yourself. And that's where, like, when you see someone and you're like, they're beautiful, it's usually because there's that connection to who they are on the inside.
So
And
here's Shelby's quote: true beauty is your connection with yourself.
I like that.
Copyright Shelby.
Copyright Shelby.
I just
I'm
reiterated
gonna
it.
add that. I
I
love it.
love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've seen it, and it's creating that alignment with who you are. And why we're uncomfortable with this, I believe, is because we have this set point on what we think we're allowed to feel, think, live. And oftentimes when we try to turn up that set point or go above it, it brings us back down. So if you think, well, I'm a certain person and I can only feel a certain way, and this is more at the subconscious level, it's not going to be you consciously think it. Well, you put something on that you feel really good in, suddenly you feel like this is different.
Mm,
I don't feel like I should be allowed to feel this way. And you take it off.
mm.
And it's creating that change of, I can feel this way. I'm allowed. I can give myself that permission to feel amazing in the clothes that I wear. And I had a client once. We had done a bunch of work together. There were tears, and it was a beautiful experience. I will tell you, everything in her closet did not align with her.
Mm.
And as soon as we got her into clothes that aligned with who she was, she texted me like a few weeks later. She's like, Shelby, I have all new clothes and I've never felt more like myself. And I thought that that was such a beautiful thing, because now she's showing up as
Yeah.
who she is.
Yeah.
And that can be a really difficult thing. That's often why we keep the things in our closet for a special occasion that we feel really good in, because we're only allowed to feel that way at certain times.
Yeah.
And I say, wear the thing that makes you feel amazing, because you deserve it.
Yeah.
What we wear, the most important person that what we wear communicates with is ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're communicating to ourselves that we're worth it, that we're worth feeling beautiful, that we're worth feeling this experience, whatever that is for you, that's when you start to, like, that's when the beauty just radiates out of you, because you're giving yourself permission, and it's not for anybody else.
You're giving yourself permission to shine, to play big, to do all the things that the good girl doesn't really get encouraged to do.
And guess what? You might have friends who are going to make fun of you for it, because that's often a thing I hear is, well, my friends are going to make fun of me. I'm like, you know what? That's get new friends. Exactly.
Come hang out with us. We'll cheer you on.
And I'm like, you know what you're doing by doing that is you're starting to give them permission to feel like themselves, because you get stuck in this holding pattern. And until someone breaks out of it, you're going to stay there.
Mhm.
And by breaking out, you're being you. And that's the most beautiful thing you can do, is to be yourself.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so you jump into your styling biz. I also love that you talked about a set point and your business is called All Set Style.
Yeah.
That feels like, that's purposeful.
Yeah.
So you start your business, and then where do you go from there?
Yeah. I'm going to give you one note about the name of my business too. Set is actually my initials with my maiden name.
Oh,
So Eloria is actually my middle name. So
Okay.
Shelby Eloria Todd was my maiden name. And so I used my initial Set and brought that into my business.
I love it. What if success didn't have to come at the cost of well-being? The Joy Method Advantage helps leaders and teams build cultures where joy, authenticity, and meaningful success go hand in hand. Because when people feel better, they lead better, they create better, and they thrive. Ready to infuse your workplace with more purpose, energy, and sustainable success? Visit jillianchecker.com and let's create a ripple effect of joy from the inside out together. Now, back to the episode. Beautiful.
Yeah. So with the styling, I still had it in me, that dream of, I'm going to be a speaker.
Mhm.
And I still struggled with, well, how do I speak about this? I don't want to speak about clothing all the time. And so I just kept it in my mind. I went and I did Toastmasters for 3.5 years. I started doing some of the work, and I was on my own personal growth journey as well, and went through my faith journey and what that shift was for me, and I started to really discover who I was at a deeper level, and I still didn't know. And then a couple of years ago, I started to notice this relationship between how we see ourselves, which is our identity,
Mhm.
and how we show up. And I saw it in my clients. Most of the ones I work with, they've gone through a personal growth journey and they're working on seeing themselves in a new way. And I was like, okay, I need to bring that in as part of my business somehow. And last summer, I discovered this term that I'd never heard before called identity coaching.
Mm.
And it was really random the way it came up. And I started thinking about, like, well, what is this? And I Googled it, and I'm like, I kind of do that with my clients already because I'm helping them see themselves in a new way. And
Hmm.
it's not just about the clothes. The clothes are a tool. However, it's more about that how they're seeing themselves. And I ended up creating a program called Authentic You.
Mm.
And it's all about that journey of going through what are the stories you've told yourself since you were young,
Hmm.
all those memories that you have. Because when I work with someone in the style, oftentimes they think they can't wear something because of something someone once said to them.
Yeah.
Could be kids on the playground made fun of you for something, or your parent said something, or an adult said something. It could be a very fleeting comment, like, who do you think you are wearing that?
Yeah.
And then you find yourself in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and you're still carrying that. And that was such a big part that I saw it over and over again in my clients. And I've also experienced it myself too. And it was just really cool to start to see even the joy that comes out of when you are like, oh, I don't have to see myself that way anymore. And I don't have to be that way anymore. And you start kind of turning up that dial and giving yourself permission to live at a different frequency.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
Yeah. And that's what got me to start Black Sheep Co., which is it actually started about a year and a half ago, the name of it. And it was my business partner. I call her my non-romantic life partner
Love it.
because we do everything in life together. We travel together. We every morning we have a peak performance meeting that we do everything together. And we started talking about this feeling that we have that we're the black sheep in certain areas of our life. And then we were like, I bet most people feel that way at some point in their life, in some area of their life. And why not create Black Sheep Co.? Although at the time we were like, maybe it's a podcast, maybe it's just a bunch of merch. I don't know what it is. And we just
Yeah.
left it and let it simmer. And as I started creating this program, we started to identify this program makes more sense. Instead of it being part of All Set Style, I can keep All Set Style as the image side of things, but to bring it into Black Sheep Co. because it's a part of celebrating those unique parts of who we are
Hmm.
that we might kind of hide because it feels like our black sheepness.
Yeah.
However, it's something really to celebrate.
Yeah. Okay. Love. We'll definitely link that in the notes. And I would love to hear more about like your black sheepness. Like, what would you say if you were to share, because really the joy journey is what feels important for people to know about our leadership is not just like the bright, shiny ways that we show up, even. It's like really like what got you to here? Like, what was that pain to power journey for you that allowed you to start to own your voice and step into your bigness and your brightness? Like, what would you say was the number one? And maybe there's more than one. I know for me there is. But was that transformational piece in your life where maybe at the time it looked really painful, but now you look back and you're like, actually, that really supported my light in the world?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a few of them for me.
Yeah.
One of them was, going through in my marriage and deciding I was going to stay with it and like he's my ex-husband now, but at the time loving him in a way that I never knew. I never knew that I'd have to go through this and the loneliness that comes with that when you're supporting a partner who isn't well and doesn't want to do anything. And that's a really difficult and painful because sometimes you think, well, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Am I not enough for them? And I knew that when I like really thought about it, I knew it wasn't about me. He
Mm.
wasn't doing this to me. He was going through his own journey. And I was able to love him and support him in that. And that was really transformational for me because it's not what I thought. It wasn't part of the journey that I had planned out, and it affected us not having children. And I didn't know at the time what it would end up being. I kept thinking like when it first started, I thought, well, it'll be a couple years. Maybe a couple years, we'll go through this journey, maybe a year. And then I suddenly found myself 12 years later we were married 16 years. And
Wow.
I realized I had gone through so much. I had been very intentional about the people I have in my life because I think there's so much power in making sure you have people in your life who really cheer you on and support you and are in your corner. And a couple years ago, I had this realization, you know what? I have to let this relationship go.
Mm.
It's not serving me anymore. He's doing better, appeared to be. I didn't know that he was, but he appeared to be doing better. And I was just like, you know what? I need to. And I didn't realize how much of a healing journey I needed to go on.
Yeah.
And after we separated, we had things shifted a lot for him, and I just realized my nervous system was shot.
Right.
I had buried my emotions. Even though I felt joy during that time, I felt grief, I felt all the things. I realized I needed to start going through my own healing journey for just feeling the emotions.
Yes.
Because I
Oh
was in
my gosh.
survival mode for so long that I didn't allow myself to feel that.
Now, just taking a moment to honor how tender talking about your marriage and the end of your marriage is, I would love to just give you a little bit of room to share that because I know you haven't really talked much about this. And I want to honor you and your ex-husband. So feel free to just share however that feels for you.
Yeah. Makes me very emotional thinking
Mm,
about it. And, it's not something I ever thought I would experience. And it was really hard to make the decision to end it, because he is an amazing person. And I did it for me. I did it for my own journey and healing. And I've really struggled with talking about it because I want to honor him as well and what he wants in his life. And I, it's a hard thing to find that balance of sharing my own personal and being authentic to myself, and also when someone else has that. And it's a really cool thing to share is I did it's called a Blue Talk. It's kind of like a TEDx talk, but a Blue Talk in the fall. And there was a little part of it where I mentioned the mental health journey. And I decided to practice it in front of him because I wanted to make sure this thing is being recorded. It's going to be out there. And it was really beautiful because he cheered me on and he was like, well, maybe you should share a little bit more.
wow.
And that was such a healing place for me because it started to give me that, like, okay, we're both coming at this from a place of healing and that we can share it because we all go through difficulties in our relationship. So I don't want to hide that part of me.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. It's not easy to stay sometimes. It's not easy to leave. And I had the opportunity shortly after I ended things that I will say he fought for me really hard. And I honor that with him because I appreciate it. I was just so emotionally destroyed that I I knew I had to honor myself. And I had this opportunity. I could go on a trip with him after a long time of no travel at all, or I could end my marriage, not know how it was going, like what was going to happen with it, and I could heal myself. And I knew in my gut it was the healing is what I needed to do.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what would happen in the future, but that's what I knew. And that was a really hard and easy decision to make.
Mm, yeah. I can only imagine how hard that would be. And I think I just want to also honor the fact that clearly there was a lot of love and care there. You were there for 16 years.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a really long time.
Yeah.
And I would just say really courageous and brave to choose you. And what I know to be true about joy is that it requires us to make ourselves and how we truly feel a priority. And as we can all see, that isn't always easy.
It's not.
But would you say now on the other side of it, again, not that this journey is complete, perhaps still there's healing happening, but would you say it was worth it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel today, and I would say it's been in the last maybe 3 or 4 months that I've really started to feel that depth in my soul that it's okay. And
Mm,
emotionally, I'm okay. And it doesn't mean everything's great. However, I feel it in my soul that I've done the work and that I feel grounded. And I would not change it. And so I've spent the last almost 2 years really intentionally going through that. I felt it. I was losing my hair. Like my
mm,
hair was so thin. Like I got to the point where I thought that I was like, okay, Shelby, you might have to shave your head one day and just own the baldness. And I was
mm,
prepared for that.
yeah.
And I realized it was part of my body saying, this isn't, the stress is too much. It had been so much low grade stress for so long.
Yeah.
And like I had shoulder injuries, and my knee was not like, hadn't been able to do push-ups for 2 years. And I just started to let myself feel it and go through it. And it was a slow journey. And last summer, I was like 4 months, I was in a very depressive state. However, it was me feeling
All the
everything.
feelings,
Yeah.
which is really icky, feels gross, is
Yeah.
like so hard. But I just really want to celebrate you for your courage to fight for your alignment,
Thank you.
for you to feel good in your life.
Yeah.
Really, really honor that. That's a really big deal to me. Like, that is leadership. That is badass leadership. And I'm wondering now, so, and maybe like, and I feel like for listeners to know that this is not just one and done. Like, grief doesn't just heal and then you never think about it again. Like, I feel like you're probably still in the process of healing, but you're also in leadership. And what I want to share is that leadership doesn't need to look perfect. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. And it's going to have its ups and downs, and it's going to keep it, and different layers too, right? Because I got through the fall of 2023, I got through one layer of grieving, and I thought I was doing better. And then suddenly last summer, it was like, nope, we're still
Kablam,
going.
kablooey, kapow.
Felt like it was like the tidal wave being like, nope, we're smacking you down again.
Yeah.
And but it was good because I needed that. And I
Yeah.
knew going through it, even though I felt like, I had a few people in my life be like, Shelby, like, are you okay? Like, do we need to go and like get you to see the doctor? And I was seeing a psychologist, and I had all the supports that I needed. And I was just like, no, I know that this is part of the journey. I know it won't be forever. I don't know how long it will be. However, this is part of what I need to go through to get the movement, get these emotions moving through me. And I'm so grateful to myself for doing that and giving myself the space.
Yeah. That's a really big deal. And so I'd love to ask you, there's two questions. Well, I have like a million. We could talk forever, but it feels like, so what do those stages look like? Because when you're younger, you're like, I know I'm meant to speak and I'm not sure what it is. Then you started All Set and continued on that journey. Now you've got Black Sheep, you've got a partnership, things are moving, you're showing up authentically. And so what are you sharing on stages? What is your message?
I thank you for asking that, because that was a really big journey for me to get to the point of what is that? And the common theme that I have seen through all of that is life leadership and learning to lead your life. And you start by leading yourself.
Yes.
And right. And part of leading yourself is understanding your identity and understanding how you see yourself. What are those stories that you tell yourself about who you are and what you're allowed to feel? And there's so much power when you start to be like, okay, that's not actually how I feel.
Yeah.
And you start to rewrite those stories, and you're leading yourself. You're leading your life in those moments. And then it's the image, it's how you're showing up. And clothing is a part of that. It's also the energy that you bring. It's also the words that you say. And all of that is part of leading your life. And that's what I've really come down to with my speaking is that leading your life, and in all these ways. And you do that through identity, image, and then it creates an impact. So identity, image, and impact are kind of the three stages.
And can you drop an honest bomb right now and tell us, like, do you have any blocks? Like, do you have any fears around doing this work? And if so, what are they? Let's just call them out and show the people that you get to lead, and fear comes along with the ride.
Yeah. Oh, do I ever? I still have it in my mind. Like, who am I to say these things? Who am I to be up on stage? Because there's so many people have incredible stories. And yet I have a quote of mine. It's, when I face myself at the end of my life, I will say I did what I was put on this earth at this time to do. And I did it with all of me.
Yeah.
And that's my anchor. And that's what I've started being like, that's what I go back to. And if this dream chose me when I was 16 years old, I have to fulfill it. That's my life's purpose.
Yes.
And that purpose, the vision is, I want to lead people to be their raw and authentic selves. And I also have to, it's hard. It's hard. I was at an event recently and I'd been to this event several times. So I've heard all the things and I was like, okay, let's find something like deeper. And this belief that what I dream of is for someone else, not for me.
Hmm.
And I still carry that, is that I'm not the person to be up on stage. That's for someone else. It's not for me.
Hmm.
And I was able to practice that this past weekend because I was speaking at an event. And I found as I was preparing for it, all the thoughts of, Shelby, who do you think you are?
Hmm.
Don't outshine other people. Stay small. Why do you think you're doing this? They were all coming up.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of work too on how to respond to those. And one big thing that I realized was I was writing it in a way for the naysayers,
Right.
for the people who didn't want to be there. And I had this big realization, Shelby, write this for the person who is ready to hear this.
Yes, queen. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So, okay, there's so many juicy things here to kind of dive into. I feel like the first is, this weekend I was sharing with the facilitators around how the best data, so like I'm not a math lady, but the best data I was ever given, it was by Katie Jolliker in one of her sessions way back when, was that in a room filled with like 90 people, 30 of those people will love you, 30% won't care, 30% won't like you. And it, for the first time, allowed me to just really hone in as a people pleaser, perfectionist, like release those pieces and just hone in on my people. And so I feel like that is why I'm able to show up in the world, is because, still sometimes the inner critic will be present. I just don't let it drive the friggin' bus any longer. And now it's like, I'm actually speaking to the people who get it, who want to work with me, who want to take full accountability for joy and really understand the message that I'm here to share. And they want to hear it, not for the ones who are the naysayers. And so I just love that. Like, I think that's so important for listeners to hear this. I also just want to celebrate you again. So much celebration, Shelby, for sharing your fear. I think this is the piece that's going to unlock leadership for everyone. Also in my leadership and speaking, if I'm honest, I don't like it. I actually remember, so I taught English in Asia when I was graduated from university. And I remember teaching and I was like, I don't want to be a teacher. Like I even came back, I'm like, I'm never going to be a teacher. I want to be a student. I want to be the one learning always. It's just way more fun. And then look at me, not like I'm literally a joy educator, teaching others how to teach joy in the world. And I feel like what allows me to do it is actually my mission. And so for me, I was recently asked to come in and teach a bunch of leaders in a company. Okay. And what is interesting about this, and it super aligns with your message, was that this person even said to me, wow, this is really different for us. And we don't usually have speakers like you come in. And I asked the question, oh, okay, like who do you normally have? And he tells me, like Olympians and people who like completed the Ironman. And I was just like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And I just like sat there for a minute and I noticed my critic coming up like, do you have any Olympic medals, But I also know it allowed me to steep in, because they hired me. They said yes. And it allows me to know that we all are, we are all Olympians. We all have stories. And what I want to say to you, Shelby, is hearing your story. And then even the fact like and we didn't dig too deep or dive in too deeply, but you'll probably come back and we're going to be best friends forever.
Love it.
When you shared about your marriage and your willingness to look at that and look at you've done the work. You have dug deep into your identity and who you are in and out of this relationship that I'm sure was not easy for you to end. And like for me, that is worth any gold medal, any degree, any certification, is the wisdom that we gain from walking through our own personal fires and then turning around and holding out our hand. It makes me really emotional because I'm like, that is what we are here to do. That is what true, like loving, or what I would call joy leadership is. It is not perfection. You fully belong on that stage. And now that people like, they get to hear this story and get inspired to do the same. Like if you're listening and you have the burning desire to speak or share or teach and you're not sure what it is, I'm so hopeful that you're hearing Shelby's message and really identifying with the fact that you do deserve to be heard and seen, and you absolutely belong up there.
And it doesn't have to be that you knew from the time you were 16. It's if you know it in your soul, you're meant to do that.
Maybe you don't want to at all.
Right?
Like me, I didn't want to. I still find it so uncomfortable. I find it uncomfortable until I'm on that stage or or I'm in that room and I'm speaking from my heart. That is when it just all lands and I just trust that I'm here to share the message that people most need to hear at this time. And that's when I call on my soulful guides to support me in sharing that message. It's not an ego thing. It's more like being used as a tool or a channel to like raise the vibration in the world with your gifts, with your light, with your black sheepness, which is so amazing.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. And you know what? To be honest with you, I don't love being on stage. Like I was never like, oh, I want to be on the center. And that also is something I've had to work on is I would be happy no one ever knowing who I am. Never being on social media, never having anything out there. I would be perfectly happy and satisfied in life. The problem is it's in my soul.
Yeah.
It's in my soul.
Is it well with your soul?
It is well with my soul.
I just my grandma's favorite song. Yeah, we have to make it well with our soul. If you feel it, you've got to do it. It's like those urges. We've got to honor those urges and trust that it's for a reason, right?
Yeah.
What would you share with your younger self? What would be, if you one most potent message, what would that be?
It's all going to work out.
Yeah.
And trust yourself.
Yeah. And one last message for the listeners today around leadership, identity, beauty, alignment, all of it. What would you like to leave with them?
I think along the same lines, trust yourself. And it's easy to make decisions based on what we think others think we should do. And it's easy to keep ourselves small because that's what we think. And trust your gut, trust your soul. Like if you feel like you are meant to do something, do it. Go after it. And it's going to be hard. I know. We all know, right? We've been there, and I still struggle with it to, apply for a speaking gig that's bigger than I've ever done before. There's a lot of doubt in there. And it's about reminding yourself that if it doesn't happen, it's okay. There'll be another time. It's all part of the journey. It's all part of moving forward and becoming the people we are. So trust yourself.
I love that. And then just letting us know where we can find you. We'll definitely be sharing links in the show notes, but if you just want to give a little message around where we can most easily find Shelby Eloria doing her magic in the world.
Yeah, a couple places on Instagram. I'm on there as Shelby Eloria, as All Set Style, and Black Sheep Co. Black Sheep Co. Still just a little baby account, but it's growing. And on LinkedIn as Shelby Eloria. I also have a All Set Style and Black Sheep Co. page there, but Shelby Eloria on LinkedIn is the biggest thing. And website, currently the main website is allsetstyle.com. And I'm working on building shelbyeloria.com. It is coming.
Okay. I love it. Shelby, thanks so much for being here today. I just really loved connecting with you. I'm really, really celebrating your courage to walk this path of leadership and guide others along the way.
Thank you so much for having me and all the work you're doing. I love joy and I think it's such a beautiful thing. So I appreciate you having me on here and I celebrate you too and the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.